And those stories were used as resistance. But something happened. That book, the Kalila with Dimna book, the original book from Persia, was lost. They looked for it, they looked for it, they looked for it everywhere, but they could not find it. Maybe they still will find it, but to this day they haven't found it. And the Sanskrit versions of those stories were lost also. And the only ones that were left behind were the Arab Kalila wa Dimna resistance stories. And so a man who spoke Farsi, because at that time people started speaking Farsi in Persia, translated that book back into Farsi. And he began to be told again in Persia, but this time with a little bit of a resistance twist. And I'd like to dedicate this very last Kalila wa Dimna resistance story to the indigenous people of Turtle Island who are struggling for their land rights, and for all the indigenous people in the world struggling for land rights. There was once a group of elephants who lived in a land where it hadn't rained in years. They were hungry and they were thirsty. And one day, the king of the elephants asked a pigeon to fly all around the world to find a place that might have water. And the pigeon flew all over the world, and when it returned, it spoke of many lands that have water in it, but there was one land belonging to the rabbits that had a spring that was so beautiful that the rabbits called it the spring of the moon. Hungry and thirsty, the elephants ran towards that spring, trampling upon many rabbit holes and killing and wounding many rabbits. The rabbits gathered together. Fairuz was a witty rabbit. Fairuz asked if he may go and speak to the king of the elephants himself. They all agreed. And he waited until the full moon. And then he climbed to the very top of the mountain and he called out, "I have a message for you from the moon god." "What's your message?" "The moon god says that you're selfish and arrogant, and just because you are large and mighty, you think that you can trample upon those who are smaller. And if you don't believe me, come with me to the spring of the moon yourself and see how angry the moon god is." And the rabbit hopped, 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 hopped all the way to the spring, and the elephant thumped, 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 thumped all the way to the spring. And the full moon reflected so brightly upon the water. "Show your respect for the spring of the moon. Dip your trunk inside of the water." And the elephant dipped his trunk inside of the water, and when he did, the water began to shake, and the reflection of the moon began to shake as well. And the king of the elephants took that as indeed the moon god is angry with him. And he took all the elephants, and they left the spring of the moon to those whom it belongs to, the rabbits. Thank you kindly.